Hey guys, it's Jeremy again. We're going to do another lap guide video. Today we're at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, Belgium. We're driving the Chevrolet Corvette Z06 GT3R, and I'm running a setup of my own design. I've been working on this the past couple days now. We're able to pull off a 2-minute 15.681. It's a pretty quick lap around here. Track conditions are the same as what we're going to be dealing with come Saturday. Weather, all that jazz is the same. I just started a test session based off Saturday's race. That being said, the track is a little bit more rubbered in than what we're going to have Saturday, at least at the beginning. I ran a stupid amount of laps here trying to get this setup dialed in, and my line is pretty well rubbered in. Spa it's just one of those legendary tracks. It's one of my all-time favorites. I cannot count how many laps I've ran here over the years. I'd like to think in all that time I've gotten quicker, learned a thing or two about what works and what doesn't work around this circuit. We're going to use this guide to try and point out some of what I know, some of the key areas, the bits of the track that you really need to focus on if you're going to pull that good lap together. We're going to run this guide the same way we ran our guides in the past. I'm going to run the lap at speed, and then we're going to break it down and point out those key areas that you're going to want to focus on. So without further ado, let's get it. And across the line. So as you can see, we were able to pull off that 2-minute 15.681. It's a really quick lap around here. I didn't have too many areas of the lap. I really think I messed up. It was more so there's some things I could do differently with this setup to try and get it a little bit more compliant around certain sections. That being said, it's working enough now, so we'll just kind of leave it as is. Starting off the lap, you do need to get a really good run out of the bus stop. You can brake pretty late going in there, but you want to make sure that for that final left coming out of the bus stop, you're getting the power down nice and smooth, but you're deliberate with your throttle application. You do need to punch it to get a good run down the straight, but you don't want to break traction. Just something to keep in mind. Every good lap starts with a good exit out of the final corner. Working our way down the front straightaway, if you want to call it the front straightaway, pit row straight, I guess. We're going to keep the car down the left-hand side of the road here. For braking markers, we've got this black box that's used for like electronic display on the right-hand side. It lines up with the 100-meter board, more or less. It's just a little bit past it, but like your vision line, it's about the same. I use this black box as my braking marker for turn 1. And so as we're coming up to it, hard on the brakes down the left-hand side of the road. We're going down into second. Now, this is one of the most critical corners of the track just because as soon as you leave the La Source hairpin, you are flat for a very, very long time. Any speed you lose here is going to carry with you for a long time, all the way down to the end of the Kemmel Straight. That being said, any speed you gain here multiplies and keeps on compounding on itself, and you keep gaining that speed and time all the way down the Kemmel Straight. So it's important to get the power down, just like I said, coming out of the bus stop, nice and smooth, but deliberately. You want to be on throttle early, but not full throttle early. You kind of just need to coax the rear end of the car around this corner and ease it into its traction zone. You don't want to have too much dead time where you're just kind of floating around this corner, because it will cost you. Every little tenth, every little hundredth here adds up. A hundredth can become a tenth by the time you get down to the end of the Kemmel Straight. Feeding the car in nice and smooth. We're looking to kind of just almost touch that wall on the right-hand side, and you can see I'm on the power really early. We're feeding the throttle in here, and we can't see anything close to the exit of the corner yet. And that's what I mean. You need to be kind of deliberate but smooth with your throttle application. I go straight to 100% here just because I can see where my line is taking me through this corner. And you have a decent amount of road to kind of feed the steering out and let the car use the rest of the track if it needs to, just so you can open up your steering more and ease that acceleration on. That way you're not breaking the back tires loose. This next bit is pretty straightforward. We have our run down to Eau Rouge. Keep the car down the right-hand side. Don't touch the wall. Please try and avoid touching the wall. Your mirror is going to get knocked off. You're going to pick up a little bit of aero damage. Just don't. You want to get as close to it as you can, but do not hit the wall. Setting up Eau Rouge. I'd chop off pretty much the entire curb here on the left-hand side on entry. And then we want to avoid touching this curb on the right-hand side of the road. It's going to push you wide, and you'll most likely pick up an off-track, if not a slowdown, coming up over the top of Radeon. And so we're just working our way around that curbing on the right-hand side. And as soon as the road kind of levels out and you start to see some curbing on the left-hand side appear, like actual three-dimensional curbing, not just the painted stuff on the road, is when I straighten up the steering and just commit to running over that curb. You can see we've lined up with this raised, elevated bit of curbing here, and our steering wheel is straight, and we're just pointing straight at that. We even cheat back to the left a little bit. This is not an off track. This is not a slowdown. We've got our right side tires pretty much just on that white line, just over it, right? But it's enough to where we're not getting bit. You're flirting with disaster coming through here because the slowdown you do pick up will kill your lap. Not to mention if you're fighting with anybody, they're going to blow by you down the Kemmel. But you can gain quite a bit of time by straightening off this left-hander at the top of Radeon. From this point on, it is just flat out down the Kemmel Straight. Through the Kemmel curve, I keep it tucked down to the right-hand side. Technically, this isn't a corner, but it's got a name, so we're going to point it out. And now we're setting up the Lacombe chicane. Past the 100-meter board, I usually set up my braking either at or just after the beginning of this curbing on the left-hand side. And we're going to try and work the car down to third gear, but we're doing it nice and gradually. We're carrying a lot of speed with us here. Keep it down to the left as far as we can, and then I aim to chop off this exit quite a bit. I don't want to get my right side tires into the gravel, and so I'm aiming to keep my right side tires on that green bit of painted concrete just inside the curb. That curbing will help kind of guide the car around the corner, but you need to be mindful that the curbing is working the inside of your tire. So the car isn't the most stable while it's doing it. You need to be smooth with your steering inputs, nice controlled, deliberate moves with the wheel, and be ready with the brake pedal just in case you need to save the thing. Up over the curb, and then we chop off the entire curb on the left-hand side. We get our left side tires over it, and we're doing the same principle that we did on entry, but in reverse for the left-hander. So we're working our left side tires over the curb. Work the car all the way over to the left side of the road as soon as you get out of the Lacombe chicane, as far over as you can. I chop a decent amount of this apex off as well. It kind of depends on how well the car is complying after getting tossed around through the Lacombe chicane. But if you're able to get the power down, it definitely helps keep the back of the car pushing its way around the corner and negates a lot of the understeer you're going to pick up after that left, right, left nonsense. Sorry, right, left, and now we're going back right. Anyways, as we're making our way into the exit, you can use a decent amount of this runoff. You want to avoid the gravel if you can, just because all of the gravel here at Spa is like super gravel. It slows you down like crazy. If you pick some up coming out of No Name, for instance, it's going to cost you almost a tenth or more before you get to Pouan, and that's a pretty short run down the hill. Making our way down to Brussels. Working our car down the left side of the road. Trail braking, this is a really tricky corner because you want to trail brake deep into it, but because it's a downhill off-camber right-hand turn, the car naturally wants to wash out. The back end wants to come around on you, especially if you've got the brake bias back, and even more so especially if you've overheated your rear tires by sliding them too much coming through the Lacombe chicane. So you want to be smooth and deliberate with your downshifts. I hold the gears for a really long time before I grab the next one down, just to avoid that rev shock that they'll get. Down into third. We're holding third for a while, and then you'll see me grab second just to kind of keep that rotation going, but we're floating through this corner. As soon as I can feel that the back end isn't completely washing out on me, I'm on the throttle, but you can see it's not full throttle. We get up to about like 70, 80% or so, and we're just kind of holding it there, just pushing the car the rest of the way around. And then as soon as the road has kind of leveled out, we're not on that crazy embankment anymore. We're back to full throttle. And the goal is to get the car all the way back over to the right-hand side of the road and set up No Name. No Name is another really important corner. Mainly the exit of No Name. You want to avoid the gravel on the outside here, just because it will grab your car like Velcro and cost you a tenth or more. We got lucky. You can see just a tiny little poof of gravel popping up back there. It's mainly just dust we picked up on exit. It isn't enough to slow us down. And we set up our run into Pouan. This is one of my favorite corners in all of racing. This is a mighty single, double, however you want to slice it, apex left-hander. I get up on the curbing on the right-hand side here, but you want to make sure you're not touching the wheel off into the grass because it's going to send you around in a heartbeat as soon as you turn into the corner. I go down into fourth. I've been playing around with fourth or fifth. As far as hot lapping goes, I'm going down into fourth just because it really helps tuck the nose of the car in, and I can be more confident on my throttle application a lot earlier in the corner. That being said, race pace, I'll probably keep it in fifth just because the car is a lot more stable. It's better for fuel economy, and you can just kind of carry more speed into the corner, and you're not banking on being able to get an amazing exit. We work our way in. You want to avoid touching this inside curb. And you can see it's the same kind of concept. We're just bleeding the throttle in. And as soon as I can tell that the front end isn't washing out, we commit. You have to commit early at Pouan just because it's such a long corner. Once the car is in that kind of groove and it's gripped up, you need to trust it and just keep your foot in it and let it run its way through the corner. You can run pretty far out to the right-hand side here, but I avoid going too far out onto this curb just because it's bumpy as all hell. It doesn't slow the car down too much unless you really bottom out on it, but the bumps can really unsettle you. And depending on how the suspension is loaded coming out of Pouan, that bump could absolutely send the car like shooting off one direction or another. It's this weird kind of section of the track, but because it's such high speed and the car is so loaded coming through here, any major bump like that can be a recipe for disaster. So I just try and avoid it. I don't like leaving those kind of things up to chance if I can avoid that. Working our way into the Lafania chicane. This is another kind of trail brake, carry speed into it. Down into fourth. I hold fourth for a while into this first right-hander before I grab third. And we're just working our way around this curbing on the right-hand side. You don't really want to touch the curb. It depends on what car you're driving, obviously. But the Corvette does not like these curbs. If you hit any of them, it's going to push you offline. So the name of the game is chasing this little white line. You want to flirt with this. You want to keep your right side tires on that line and almost like riding that kind of bit of the curbing where you can see the paint's been chewed off. That is the like ideal line I found for the Corvette, at least, just kind of rotating its way around the curbs, not so much attacking them. This is a really tricky little section just because you want to carry a lot of speed through here, but anytime you're carrying a lot of speed into a corner, the back of the car is prone to coming around on you on braking. So you need to be gentle and smooth with your inputs. It's something I'm not, but I'm telling you guys to be gentle and smooth with your inputs. Same concept here. We're on the throttle. You can see that we're doing that kind of nursing throttle, just pushing the car through the corner. And then once we can tell that we've got the grip that we need, we're full throttle and just waiting to catch it if we need to on exit. Back over to the left-hand side of the road, setting up the right-hander campus. This is another really crucial corner just because from this point on, as soon as you exit campus, turn 14, you're going to need to be flat out pretty much all the way to the bus stop. I've found that braking a little bit softer and carrying some speed deeper into this corner before you commit to turning in is usually the way to go. I wait until the last possible minute really for my downshift. I've shifted a little early on that one, but it helps with that kind of rev kick that you get from changing gears just to push the rear end out a little bit more and force that rotation through this corner. At this point in the lap, your tires are a lot warmer than what they were at the start of the lap. They're not going to provide you with the same level of grip that they were through the first couple of corners. And so you do kind of need to adjust your driving style to compensate. And that's where that kind of late downshift aids in being able to get the back of the car angled the way you need it to be able to get back on throttle. You can see that we're doing that, nursing the car around the corner with the throttle. And then at this point, we're already back to 100% throttle. You can walk the car pretty far out to the left here, but again, you want to avoid this gravel at all costs. It's going to rob you of all of the time you gained your entire lap around Spa. If you run too far off into the gravel here, if you touch a wheel off in it at all, really, it's going to grab you and slow you down. I keep the car on the left-hand side here. I keep my left side tires pretty much on this green painted bit of concrete on the other side of the curb. And we're setting up a late turn in for Stavelot. This is another crucial corner just because Campus and Stavelot are like the make or break corners for the lap, because if everything you did leading up to these corners goes away, then what was the point of it in the first place, right? So you really need to keep it all together once you get this far into the lap. Once you commit to your turn in, keep your foot on it. The car is going to bounce. Well, the Corvette does, the NSX does. A lot of the cars I've driven around here tend to bounce when you really get them hooked in here. Just keep your foot up it and nice and smooth steering inputs, and she'll hold. Just be ready to back out in case it does wash out too far. It's usually better to back out a little bit than to run fully off into the gravel. And we're just working the car out to the left-hand side of the road. Just opening the steering up, trying to carry speed. You can turn the wheel more, but it's going to scrub speed off. And usually turning the wheel more doesn't make the car turn more at that point once understeer is already bit. So you kind of just need to modulate with throttle at that point if you are experiencing understeer coming through. But again, it's a crucial corner. You do need to keep your foot in it as best you can. Otherwise, you're going to sacrifice a lot of the time that you have gained, if you have gained, throughout the lap. Now this run down through Paul Frere on our way to Blanchimont is pretty straightforward. Nice smooth left. Coming up to Blanchimont, we keep the car over to the right-hand side of the road and just huck it in. Avoid that curbing on the left-hand side. And now we're coming up to the bus stop chicane. There's a bunch of different ways to go about this depending on what situation you find yourself in. Hot lapping, I tend to just push it as far as I can into the braking zone. It's a similar tactic to when you are defending or fighting with a car attempting to overtake. You can go pretty deep on the brakes into the bus stop chicane. It isn't always the fastest line through the bus stop, but there's a lot more room than you think to get this car slowed down. I mean, obviously there's a massive runoff past it, but we're not talking about that. I usually aim just past the 100-meter board for a solid braking reference here. I was a little earlier this lap just because I was pretty far up on my delta and I didn't want to toss it away. So I think we start braking around about 150 meters here is where we're getting on the brakes. Keep the car straight down the left-hand side of the road. And then you want to aim, again, depending on what car you're driving, you can take this chicane a number of different ways. I've found almost all of the German cars can pretty much eat these curbs for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they don't notice it. The Mustang isn't terrible over the curbs. The Ferrari isn't the best. I found the NSX likes to just bounce its nose straight up to the sky like the Corvette. So it's just kind of a situational thing. Whatever car you're in will determine your best method of attack through the bus stop. The Corvette, like I said, hates the curb, so we're going to avoid them. I work it down the right here, around that first curb. And you want to try and keep the car as far to the right as you can while coming out of that right-hander. If you open the steering too early, you're going to compromise your entry into the left-hander, and it's going to ruin your run out of the final corner. You'll see tenths trickle away, and not only that, but it's going to compromise the start of your next lap. As soon as we get the car pointed and straightened up towards the right-hand side, we just toss it back to the left, and we're working it around that curbing on the left and just bleeding the throttle in and pushing the car around the corner. We get a little bit of oversteer here, but I was able to catch it pretty well, kept the car in a straight line without scrubbing off too much speed, and then just power back across the line. So yeah, 2 minute 15.681. It's not a bad lap around Spa. Hopefully this guide is able to find you guys some time or point out some areas of the track that you can focus on a little bit better. I will catch you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.